franktalks.com.
Remember to sign up for the Coping with Loss newsletter and get weekly supporting messages to help you manage your bereavement, grief, and mourning. You are not alone. Sign up at franktalks.com now.
Check out the Frank Talks Relationships column currently running in the Suburban Newspaper online magazine. To read more, please visit thesuburban.com.
Listen to The Barry Morgan Show, live weekdays noon to 3 on CJAD 800 and CJAD.com.
08 CJAD time. Be careful out there. It is really slippery. It's certainly very cold as well. You know, the blowing snow, so it's making it for a pretty tough day to walk and to drive as well. Coming up, a daredevil who accomplished a first, climbed Niagara's Horseshoe Falls ice wall. Climbed an ice wall. And he's going to tell us how he did it. Right now, Frank Kermit is here. Frank's a dating expert, franktalks.com, sitting in for Dr. Lori Bettito, the host of Passion, which runs every weeknight between 10 and 11 here on CJAD. Frank's been a frequent guest on Passion. He's been on this show a number of times as well. You're going to be on with Lori tomorrow, I think, right?
That's right. Kelly Alexander guest hosts, and I'll be on for the full hour to take your calls, texts, and emails. All of your questions on anything to do with love, dating, and relationships. And
if you have a question right now, don't be shy. You can give Frank a call. It's 790-0800. Send us a text at 514-800. We talked about this last week, Frank, and you were part of the conversation. It was about seekingarrangement.com, right? That website. And, you know, sugar daddies and sugar babies. And I spoke with somebody from Seeking Arrangement. Mm-hmm. And I know you had some specific concerns. Like I remember there was one particular quote that I read from you off the story from Global News last week where you said, and I'm paraphrasing, but the idea was that if somebody is used to getting something relatively easy at a fairly young age, well, you're not setting a very good standard for yourself down the line. That's more or less what concerns you about seeking arrangement?
I don't see anything wrong per se with seeking arrangements. As long as everybody involved is an adult, a consenting adult, and they know what they're getting into. Here is the issue, is that they don't warn people what the negative impact is. For the women involved, for the sugar babies, they get accustomed to a certain lifestyle. What happens when that sugar daddy moves on to someone else? She's still not accustomed to working for a living, going into a job 9 to 5, living within her means. A lot of them end up in major debt, and some of them really struggle in the regular dating world because their standards are so high. They have this expectation that's never met, and they are generally not too happy. Not everybody can simply adapt to going back into regular dating. The guys face a challenge as well. When you're so used to paying for the outcome, and the outcome often is sex. What happens when you go back into the regular dating world, and you're no longer paying for this outcome? Now, all of those things that you did that you thought you were being charismatic and witty turn out to be just very creepy behaviors. Yeah. That women who you're not paying for their time and for their companionship, they have no reason to stick around. Up until that point, every woman has told you exactly what you wanted to hear because you were paying for her time, right, and paying for whatever the exchange was.
Whatever the exchange was.
So,
sorry.
So basically, these guys are now struggling, saying, I don't understand. It worked before. Why is it now that none of these girls want to be with me? Well, actually, it never worked before, dude.
Yeah, and they're, it's like, I guess if it's, obviously it's their own free will and so forth, but I don't know. I just find the whole thing very creepy. Very creepy. We're talking dating. We're talking relationships with dating expert Frank Kermit. And this is from the HuffingtonPost.com. Most common things hidden on dating profiles. Are you trying to tell me that not everybody tells exactly the entire truth and nothing but the truth about themselves?
I'm sorry, Barry. I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news. But yes, when you go online, not everybody is forthcoming about what it is they need to share.
And they've detailed here some of the top 5 examples, like job title and salary. I mean, the thing is, you've got to be careful, but how are you supposed to really know, right, if this person is being honest or not?
Fact is, you don't. You don't. Now, this is why when you meet somebody from online dating, you want to meet in a public place for the very first time. You want to have someone that you can call and just let them know that you're safe. And you also want to prepare a list of questions, because what the profile may say about them and who they are in person may be completely different. In fact, there are some businesses out there that will write the profile for you. And they'll speak in a manner like they will communicate with the person up until the point where you end up meeting. Now, I do not support these unethical practices, but they're out there. So it's very possible that you had some wonderful, romantic, very positive conversation with somebody, and you get in front of them, and it seems like they're completely different people. And the answer is, well, they are.
Height and body type, people, lie about that stuff all the time.
See, I never understood this, because you're going to meet the person. So you may as well just put up a current picture and just be honest about it. And yes, it may turn some people off. Okay? Yes, it is going to turn some people off. But those aren't the type of people you want to waste your time anyway. Some people go into online dating with this mentality of, if I can just get the person to like me first, they'll be more willing to tolerate all these other things about me that they may not like. And if you're already starting from that premise of manipulation, the only person you can end up with is a person who can be manipulated, and nobody feels comfortable with that.
Somebody just texted this, Frank, such a cold way to meet someone. And, I felt the same way, although it worked out well for me.
Are you talking about online dating?
Yeah, I guess they're specifically referring to online dating. It did work out because I met my wife on a dating site 12, 13 years ago. I should remember exactly the date. But... and look, if things didn't work out the way they did, I'd probably still feel the same way as this person.
I completely disagree. Because the means on how to meet somebody is not the issue. Whether or not you're compatible and can make that connection, that's the issue. And for people who say that online dating is cold, I've had similar people say meeting through a blind date is horrible. Going through a matchmaking agency, there's something wrong with that. The phone systems, when they used to have the phones. Let me make something very clear. If you have a problem with the means on how you're going to meet someone, it's probably because you have an idea in your head of the way it's supposed to be. And when I use the word supposed to be, it's in quotation. Forget the way it's supposed to be. Look at what is. Are you single right now? Yes. Do you want to meet somebody? Yes. Then be open to meeting people in all different kinds of ways.
Yeah, like the blind date thing, it's got a really bad rap.
Of course it has a bad rep.
Oftentimes it doesn't work out, right?
No, not because it doesn't work out. Look at how many marriages that start off with a romantic beginning still end up in that 50% divorce category. People have a script that they are following in their head about how they're supposed to meet somebody. That script is responsible for keeping a lot of people single. Because we didn't meet in that crowded room and saw each other and had an instant and this whole thing, and I'm making eye contact.
Violins in the background.
Okay, get over it, people. Grow up. Life's not a fantasy. And if you have this script running through your head of how it's supposed to be, look, I had one person that told me, I don't see what the point is. My parents met because they were next door neighbors, so I just keep waiting that someone will move in next door to me, and that'll be the person I'll marry.
Like somebody just wrote this, isn't online dating for losers? Well, no, it's not. It's not.
No.
I think you're losing out on something if you don't, maybe like Frank suggests, take the opportunity to use whatever avenue may be available to you. We're talking relationship news. We're talking dating with dating expert Frank Kermit. franktalks.com, and this was from the Guardian.com, their life and style section, Frank. What biscuits say about your relationship. If your partner serves you soggy custard creams or shuffles off to the corner of the sofa, they're probably trying to tell you something. And if you go on and read this is about subtext, or about context, I guess, if you like, and subtle messages, or maybe not so subtle, that your partner is sending you by serving you a soggy biscuit or soggy or going off to the corner of the sofa. So is it really that subtle?
I read this article and I am in complete disagreement. I don't think that this is tolerable. And the analogy I would like to use is, what would happen in the workplace? If your boss had something to tell you, should they be subtle about it, or should they say, look, this is what I'm thinking, this is what I expect, and I need you to know?
Well, you'd think as direct as possible, right?
Okay, so that would be what you appreciate. What happens in the workplace, though, when you have somebody always being so subtle and sending a subtext about things about you they don't like.
Not too good.
That creates a toxic work environment. In fact, that can be interpreted as intimidation and creating a very harassing work environment.
Yeah.
What makes anybody think that these things are great in a romantic relationship?
Well, I don't think anybody would say they're great, but this is the way some people behave. Let's face it. You're not always going to get along, and some people, if they're upset with their partner, well, yeah, they might be a little bit more into themselves, or might serve a soggy dinner, or you know what I'm trying to get at.
I get what you're trying to say, but let me put this in perspective. If every time you're upset with your partner, you're going to stop being a caring partner to them, you're not helping the situation, and you're not getting the message across.
And why am I with that person, is what you're going to suggest?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Why are you with that person if you can't even say to the person, look, I'm really not happy about something, we need to talk? When I went to a wonderful seminar by Dr. Steve Stosny, he was the author of Love Without Hurt. He talked about how even when you're fighting with your partner, all those little routine things that you do, getting your partner a cup of tea, or making their coffee in the morning for breakfast or whatnot, you don't break those patterns. You still commit to those patterns, because when you start to break those patterns, all you do is push your partner further and further away. This is where we get into emotional isolation. These things can become emotionally abusive. There is no good value coming from this. You got a problem with your partner, got to talk to your partner. And if you're not able to talk to your partner, if you're in a relationship, and I do see these, if you're dating someone or you're in a relationship with somebody where you are afraid to bring up certain topics of conversation, then you're not in the right relationship.
Yeah, I know, but it's not always that easy, right, Frank? It's stuff can develop over the course of 10, 15, 20 more years. There's children involved. You're obviously, your lives have been intertwined for so long. Other than, what would you suggest? I'm not saying you're suggesting people should break up when they're in situations like that.
I'm not going to suggest they break up, but the idea that, sometimes it's difficult. Yes, it's going to be difficult. Relationships are not easy. And when people say, then what's the point? Well, do you have a career you're passionate about? Some people would say, yeah, I love what I do. I do it, don't do it for the money. I do it because I love it. Guess what? Those careers that you are passionate about, they're not easy either.
See, Marie just texted, what do office interactions have to do with romantic relationships? Am I missing something? I don't know, Marie. I thought, to me, the difference is, of course, when you're talking about relationships at home, you're talking about a whole different kind of relationship than the one that you have at work. But I guess, Frank, the point you're trying to make is communication is communication.
The point I was trying to make is that we're talking about repeating behavior patterns. In the office environment, these would never be tolerated. And if they're not tolerated in an office environment where you don't have that much of an emotional attachment, you should never tolerate these or take these actions on with somebody you care about.
Claudia texts this question: how do you tell the difference between accepting a person for who they are and settling for all you can find? I find it's hard to be single when there's so many things out there telling me that the perfect person is out there, and if I settle for anything less, then I should wait. That's from Claudia.
All right, Claudia, it comes down to a difference between boundaries and preferences. That's what it comes down to. When you are settling, when we use the word settling, what we're really telling people is settle for someone who doesn't meet your boundaries. And a boundary has to be something really important to you, so at that point, you're giving that up.
Yeah.
When we're talking about acceptance, it means that, okay, it may not be your preference, but that particular thing wasn't a deal breaker to begin with. So you're more than accepting of someone, even though they may not have all of your preferences.
Like it could be a height requirement.
It could be a height requirement, meaning that someone says, okay, I prefer someone who's such and such a height.
Yeah.
But if the person is not as tall or as short as I would like, that's okay. It was just a preference. It wasn't something that was absolute for me. Therefore, I can accept it. So acceptance is good. When you're settling, usually the term settling means you had a very strict boundary. I will not date somebody that has this in their profile. And then you say, okay, well, I can't find anybody else. I guess I'm going to have to settle. And that thing that was so important to me and still bugs me to this day, I'll just learn to live with it. And that's settling.
So somebody just wants to know, for the record, soggy biscuits, they're not good.
Okay, if you're serving your partner soggy biscuits because you're upset with your partner, you're part of the problem.
Somebody else sent this text. This is why I was married for 47 years. You have to work on it. Treat each other respectively. I agree completely with your guest.
Thank you, and please write in again.
Oh, man alive. Frank, we can keep you all day, but I know you've got things to do, and we're out of time, to be honest with you. But really interesting stuff. Frank is going to be on Passion tomorrow night on CJAD for the entire hour.
That's right.
That's between 10 and 11, taking your calls, taking your texts here on CJAD, and he's a frequent guest on Lori Bettito's show. He comes into this program every once in a while as well. You can check out his website, franktalks.com. franktalks.com. Great to see you.
Barry, always a pleasure.
News Talk Radio, CJAD 800, CJAD.com.
Need help with love, sex, dating and relationships? Visit franktalks.com.
If you need help with your relationships, my buddy Frank, he's got some tips. Just go to franktalks.com. His advice is better than your mom's. He knows what you're going through, 'cause Frank has been there too. So log on to franktalks.com. franktalks.com.
What do you do when you feel like a fool? When your heart has been broken again? Pick up the phone or get onto Skype and talk on a private session. Yeah, get a little help from Frank Talks. Whoa, whoa, get by with a little help from Frank Talks. You gotta try a little help from Frank Talks. What do you do when your love goes away? Try coaching one-on-one. How do I sign up to turn things around? Just sign up at franktalks.com.